I saw Wonka.
Oh, how was Wonka?
It kicked ass. It was great.
Hell
It was
yeah.
it was
Hell yeah.
awesome. Yeah, it was so cute. Timmy has the juice. I didn't think he had it in him. Like
Hell yeah.
honestly, I really thought that he would be too try hard, too cringe. Not to use a overused word, but like he really sold
Now,
it.
if anyone could be described as cringe, I think Timmy Chally in Wonka, the idea of which implies cringe, right?
What did you
To me,
call
at
him?
least. To me. Timmy Chally?
That's a terrible, terrible nickname. Timmy is good enough. I think you don't need to abbreviate his last name too.
Why is it too much of a challenge, May, for you?
Did you watch anything this week?
I did not, outside of Manhunter.
Well, thank God you watched Manhunter because we're supposed to talk about it. But you didn't. You were supposed to watch.
I was supposed to
I
watch
can't
Father.
remember.
I know.
Yeah, come on, man.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever.
That was on the docket. It got shuffled around to next week
Next week.
or this upcoming week, depending upon how you want to look at it.
Well, you got to stop playing so many video games because you got to watch more movies. Because otherwise, you're not ever gonna be able to call yourself a true film bro. I think.
I don't think I am a film bro. I think I'm a video guy. You know?
Well, the thing is that in this podcast description, which I'm going to read out here in a second, I do describe you as an aspiring film bro. So
Yeah,
you better,
I know.
jot that down. This is We Want to Watch. My name's Lane.
My name's Ricky.
This is a podcast where we talk about movies that we want to watch, whether that's a movie we think we should see or that the other person should see, a recommendation, important movies that we want to talk about, and learn why people talk about them. So I suggested this movie this week where we watched Manhunter from 1986. It is directed by Michael Mann, based on the original novel in the kind of Silence of the Lambs, whatever, Thomas Harris series, the first book, Red Dragon. I love this movie, so I was excited. This has been one on the Kino 101 with Ricky list for a long time, but we just never got around to it for some reason. Probably because I think this movie is very horny, but in a great way, though. So I'm excited for this to open up the There's a couple different routes we could take. I have like notes, but I'm excited because this is going to allow you many doors to do your favorite thing so far on this podcast, which is compare and contrast. Because both because of the Heat comparison, right? Same director, but also the Silence of the Lambs comparison, another movie that we've watched together. So, yeah, had you heard of this movie before? Like I brought it up to you?
I had not. No.
Not at all. That's kind of crazy.
Not at all. I really liked it though. I'll say right off the bat.
Yeah, I don't know when I first watched this movie. I think I watched it for the first time about 5 years ago, I want to say. I had known of it growing up just because I was always into Silence of the Lambs, and I remember watching all of the sequels to the Silence of the Lambs, the ones that have Anthony Hopkins in them. So Hannibal and Red Dragon, which are bad. But I don't know if you've seen those, but probably not.
Nope.
But yeah, so I knew of this, but I didn't ever watch it. And then when I did finally watch it a few years ago, I was like blown away and like continue. It just grows in my esteem every time I watch it. So this is definitely a Lane's frame in the true meaning of the word. But yeah, so you like this movie?
Yeah, I thought it was great. So the main actor, William Graham.
William Peterson is the actor who you said looks like Orson Welles.
Right.
Gotta say,
Doesn't really look like Orson Welles.
Thank you.
Especially when they were younger, right?
Yeah, as I was watching it this time, I was like, Ricky's fucking crazy. That was all I could think while I watched. I was like, this is nuts.
Yeah, I thought that for a decent half of the film, but then I got too engrossed in it, right?
Yeah. How was your experience?
I really enjoyed it. So, like, I definitely enjoy, like, psychological thrillers, I guess, or, like, crime psychology thrillers. I don't know how you would define, like, this movie and Silence of the Lamb, but
Lamb.
especially, like, the...
It's plural lambs, bro. There's multiple lambs.
Oh.
I mean, it's just the one lamb she carries, but, they're all screaming.
That's crazy. Well, they're not screaming. They're silent.
Now they are. Anyway, okay.
Wow.
So you like procedurals?
Yeah. And also, I mean, it may sound, like, weird, but this movie was almost like a comfort movie to me.
Yeah, let's go.
So like seeing Gil Grisham like go through and like do his thing when he was younger, very cool. Like getting into the mind of a killer, because they sort of do that in CSI. It's like this to sort of toned down degree.
CSI is totally indebted to this movie.
Yeah, 100%. And it seems like they took like the best aspects out of like many CSI episodes and then just condensed and distilled it down to its like pure raw essence, and that was this movie, which was really great. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, see, I've never seen I've seen CSI and like Law and Order. I don't really watch I don't watch a lot of TV in general, but I really don't watch like those types of shows regularly. And so when you invoked this and you were like, the guy from CSI, I was like, oh, like that man had a whole career before then. And he did play a lot. He played a lot of cops. I mean, he kind of looks like a cop, but like a weird cop. Yeah. So what's his persona like on CSI?
It's essentially William Graham if he never got out of the game, right?
Oh, that's scary for that man.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of think that like reprising that sort of role for him was, I mean, maybe not comforting, but like, I mean, it was something that he knew, obviously. It was something that he knew he could play well. He always was the sort of, so like on their team, he was sort of like he played the fatherly role most of the time. Which made it weird whenever there were any romances. And maybe that was just the way that I saw it, because like I watched CSI growing up. Especially as it got later on into the series, and I think they even replaced him like in season 7 or 8. I don't know. I remember pretty vividly up through season 6, which one of the characters gets like buried underground by a psychopath.
Woof.
And yeah, and our boy William Peterson comes in and like gets to like save him, and he's like, you're okay now, you're okay. And it was essentially like the
ending spoilers. Of this, yeah.
The ending of this movie. And like he did almost exactly the same thing, where it's fine, like I'm here now.
Yeah, he has like a very like wounded vibes. Like wounded dad. Like he gives wounded dad energy really well. I don't think he's a particularly like attractive guy, I guess, in this movie or in general, but like yeah, he does have like a very like, I'm on the edge, or I've been past the edge for so long that I can just cope with whatever. And I can see how that would bring him back over and over again to play different cops, because he has played cops in a lot of stuff. So that's interesting.
He looks like someone that does it well, right? Like,
oh, for sure, he's got like the face.
I love his performances.
Yeah. And really, the middle section of this movie, I think this movie's good, like a banger from start to finish, but the middle section where, like that whole little short scene, or not short even, but that kind of part where they're doing all the forensics, like back to back, like they're going like physical evidence, like they're trying to like smoke out the ink, they're trying to like all of that stuff, they're doing the code breaking, like all of that is the like originator of those procedural shows, right? Like, I mean, that's just like, and not just the way that they, like the topics that they're covering or like the acts that they're doing, but the specific like editing style and the way that they're talking to each other. It's really, it's, I feel like it's the blueprint for those types of shows.
For sure. And I mean, some of my favorite parts of CSI were like seeing guys like in like the red tinted room, and they're picking up like a piece of evidence, whatever it may be, toilet paper in this case, and they're just like looking at it really intensely. It's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, and the guy holds it up. It's maybe one of, if not the most badass moment in the movie, actually, is when he holds it up and he's like, "You're so sly, but so am I." And it's just like, yeah, get him. The one time it's okay to root for cops. It's this movie.
Yeah, right? Well, these guys are chasing like real bad guys, right? These are like, they're not like, he's FBI, right? Like, come on, he's a step above. Yeah
It's just funny that it's like, okay, the propaganda starts with like serial killer hunting and like mind hunting or whatever, and then now it's like trickled down to like Cops, the TV show, where it's just like violence against like regular people on the street, basically, or like drug users. It's embarrassing. But
I also grew up watching Cops. I was like a big cop kid, I guess. Not that I like knew it, but yeah, I would like watch Cops just because I love the intro song. The bad boy, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
I'm glad I've got new outro music for this episode.
Yeah, right? You're welcome. NCIS? Oh, all of them. Like,
It is hard.
I was in the trenches.
It is hard to sometimes watch movies like this where it is propaganda, or like TV shows as an adult, because you're like, this isn't what they're doing. But
Right.
it's so satisfying when you do see, just like these vectors of good actually acting the way that they're supposed to.
Right. So I'll say Brooklyn Nine-Nine is like
The
prime
worst.
time
I was gonna say.
propaganda.
Yeah.
It is like the furthest removed from what actual like New York beat cops are like.
Yeah. So where do we want to start with this?
I would actually kind of like to start on the different portrayals of Hannibal Lecter between this and Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
Cool.
Wait, have you also, before just throwing a third one into the mix, have you seen Hannibal, the TV show?
No, but I've seen like clips from it, so I kind of get the gist of like what they were going for with that Hannibal.
Yeah. I think you would like that show, I'll say. It's very violent, but it's cartoonish, but it's not. It's stylized to a very particular end, all of the violence in it, and it's far and away the definitive portrayal of that character, just because obviously a TV show is going to be able to go into psychology and like a character more than a movie can.
For sure.
So it's interesting in comparison, because the Lecter in this movie is like so funny to watch in comparison to those other two depictions. Because you and I, when we watched Silence of the Lambs, we were like, is Anthony Hopkins like his portrayal of Hannibal the most iconic anything ever? Like the most iconic character
perfect.
of all time?
That is Hannibal to me, in my mind, right?
Yeah. It's hard not to.
So seeing him here was like a jump scare almost. I didn't know Hannibal Lecter was going to be in this movie.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I went into this blind.
He's so stripped down and like menacing, but mundane in a way where like I'm never thinking like Hopkins Lecter or Mads Mikkelsen's Lecter are like far from violence, whereas this guy, like, he's so contained that it seems, he's like icy and like nothing going on behind the eyes, whereas those other two are very like not emotional, but they have emotion or like emotional intelligence maybe, whereas this one just has like, he's just like a fucking scientist, like poking and prodding at Graham underneath the microscope. He's like, when he starts like prodding at him in the scene where he first interviews him, and he's just like, you want to leave me your home phone number? You're like, run away. Do not talk to this man.
It's kind of a meme, like, oh, this is the first realistic depiction of a panic attack. That's like, I don't know, I've seen on film Twitter a couple of times, and this movie had the first depiction of a realistic panic attack.
Where it's like, it gets all blurry, and he's like like the spiraling, like it's so heavy-handed in a way, like the spiraling down a staircase. But it's. I mean,
it works though, because it's not
for
like
sure.
Immediate, and even like running to get that sort of like frantic energy out, like it doesn't help, right? You're still sort of like you're wired, and he doesn't even like, you get like this sort of like hand cam footage where he's like running out past the guards. And it's just like, like I just gotta get the fuck out of here. Like I don't know where I'm going. I just have to get somewhere. I gotta be outside. I gotta breathe. Like, name 3 things I can see. Name 5 things I can touch. Like, get me out of here.
Yeah. I
mean, I really like that scene. I will say I thought that early Hannibal in this was pretty good, and then as it went on, like, I get that he really does take like sort of a backseat role. Like, he's not prominent in this film, but he just kind of stops doing anything, right? Like they find the like note in his cell. Like, that's it. That's his role in this. Yeah. Like, even the conversation that he has with him later on in the film doesn't really, like, you can tell that he's trying to like poke and prod at him, but I guess without that sort of like feedback of the person in front of him, it doesn't work as well, because he can't tell like how he's getting to him. But he goes on like that weird tirade about like, God,
earthquakes
people all the time.
Yeah. It's actually really fun. Yeah, because he gives Graham the like quote that's like, when we do as God does enough times, we'll become as God is. And he says that, and then Graham is like, kind of like, you hear Lecter fade out in the background, and he's like, there was a church fell on some people the other day, and there was also an earthquake. It's like, this man
he's
is
just like naming numbers.
He's
like, 200 in an earthquake. Italy, check it out. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, is that intimidating? Is this an intimidation tactic?
See, that's why I think it's more, it's like he can't help himself in a way because he's more detached, this Lecter, versus like Hopkins Lecter would never say, like he wouldn't go on those kinds of rants just because he mentions people dying or whatever, but he wouldn't be like mundanely, again, like kind of just narrating facts or like reciting newspaper headlines that he read, because that's not,
right.
That doesn't have a means to an end in the same way that this Lecter is like, he's just kind of caught up in his own psychology, I guess, in a way. It's interesting. Yeah. He's really scary.
Two very different portrayals.
Yeah, I think
he's scary. He has like a certain like presence on screen. Even it's sort of like Joker-esque at times, right? Because like I guess the way that he sent the message was like interesting, like makes sense for like Hannibal Lecter as a character.
No one ever says anything about him being a cannibal in this movie, to my knowledge. When Graham is describing to his son what happened, he just says like, oh, he was attacking college girls in like awful ways.
Yeah.
Like, it's so pulpy. I think that I think they mentioned that he's cannibalistic maybe in passing, but just like making it, I don't think he just specifically attacks college girls like in the novel. So it's just, it's a very like interesting kind of pulpy or like kind of lurid way of framing it without even going too violent in a way, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't really pick up on that, but now that you mention it, I don't recall them ever really saying that he was a cannibal.
Right.
Which is like, it's definitely an interesting choice, especially because the other two portrayals of Hannibal in like the cultural consciousness
are so cannibal.
The TV show came much later, but yeah, they're so cannibal based. It's like very heavy on the like, this guy will like bite your neck.
Yeah.
Vampire style.
Yeah.
And I guess that also sort of leads to the sort of differences between like the cold, calculating sort of like, he almost has that like dead fish look in this movie in a lot of scenes where he's like what he's, it's, how do they describe the eyes of the shark in Jaws? It's like a doll's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like cold, lifeless. And it's like what he's doing is like a machine almost. And the way that he puts on like different affectations in order to like get through the operator and like get the information that he wants is like very interesting, versus in like Silence of the Lambs where it's like, okay, this guy's like a rabid fucking animal, and like sure he can turn the charm on, but like he's gonna like rip your fucking throat out, like
right.
This guy's an animal.
Yeah,
it's a very sort of raw energy, which I feel like maybe wasn't lacking in this movie, because I definitely feel like it was an artistic choice to portray him differently.
Yeah, I guess too, him being caged is scarier. He's not as scary when he's running around. And you have to contrast him with Dollarhide, with the Tooth Fairy, who is he is also kind of reserved in a way. Obviously, he's more violent on screen, but he has more of like a sexuality, I guess, to him than Lecter does. Like Lecter is doing it because he's like fascinated from like a scientific or like a calculating aspect, whereas Dollarhide, it's like all about the experience. So I guess that could be a part of the reason is like remove the lurid or like the really sensationalistic details from the Lecter thing. It's also just like, it's the 80s and this was a pulpy movie, a stylized, so it could just be, there's only so much room in here to focus on certain things. And obviously they didn't know, Silence of the Lambs wasn't even a book when this came out. So it's like, they didn't know what they really had with Lecter. Yeah. Lecter is just a vector for, not to rhyme, for Graham to be, comparing himself and empathizing with serial killers, and which the show goes into in really interesting detail. Hannibal isn't like he's the main mastermind villain in a lot of ways, but it's not like he's just spending, Graham in the show isn't just spending time, hunting Hannibal. Like he's doing other stuff and Hannibal's like in his life. So it's really interesting in that way.
Yeah. So I thought that this came out at about the same time as Silence of the Lambs.
No.
Knowing that it came out before definitely adds like a really interesting sort of view on it. It definitely makes more sense with how they portrayed Hannibal.
Yeah. This movie came out in 86, and then Lambs came out, I think, 93. So And then the book didn't come out until a couple years after this movie. And this movie did shitty. Like, people thought this movie was hot garbage when it came out, which is so funny. But yeah, people thought it was like just all, music video editing and like kind of gross and kind of like The Thing, really stylized and nasty, but not actually having anything going on under the surface, which is crazy to me because this movie's so full of just capital T themes. Yeah, they're definitely different characters or different portrayals. But I think that's to the benefit of this movie because truly you need somebody to contrast with, like, again, the sensuality or like the viscerality of what the Tooth Fairy is doing.
Yeah, it's almost sort of... So we can sort of transition over to talk about the Tooth Fairy. It's very odd to me how he sort of separates his, like there's a very sexual nature in his killings, right? And he's doing it for gratification so that he can like feel loved, yada yada. But then when he's with someone that like is accepting of him and does love him, he's like sort of rejecting of that reality almost, right? Like he doesn't even really like touch her. I don't know.
I would watch a whole movie of their relationship. Like, I love the Will Graham stuff. I like the Lecter stuff in this movie. Like, I get that's the story. But their relationship is so fucking interesting to me. I can't explain it. Like, the way, like, he spends the whole movie, like, trying to, right, all of his killings are, like, he's trying to transform, and he's becoming subsumed in what he sees, and that's what he's trying to do so that he can, like, live vicariously through, like, this almost like dissociative like act that he's doing with these families so that then he can kind of relive it in his mind. Not the experience so much, but the sight of it is what's like transformative to him. Like this movie's all about how like human connection is about seeing, but seeing is more than just like the literal like voyeuristic ability to see with your eyeballs. Like he breaks the mirrors and he like makes the audience or his audience, his captive audience see him. But then like he meets Joan Allen's character. He meets, I can't remember, Reba, and then she like blows him away. It's like he can't even begin to fathom to be able to see or connect without like seeing with your eyes. Like he even says in the scene where he is torturing the journalist Freddie Lowndes, he's like, "Do you see? Do you see?" Which is so fucking horrifying. Yeah. But yeah, he watches the scene with the tiger, which is like so hot.
Yeah, that was as soon as it started, I was like, oh, this is the sensual scene. Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like he can't understand that she's able to like connect to this thing and like have this emotional like transformative moment of her own without being able to literally see. And so he's having like this like practically like this orgasmic moment where he's connecting with his other senses for basically like the first time. And the same with her. Like they then go back to his place. Which, thank God she's blind, not only, like, so she can't see it all, but his house is fucking horrifying. But yeah, so, like, this movie just being about, like, these two kind of, not weirdos, but they're kind of both weird. I mean, she's kind of weird. The things she says are so, like, direct and aggressive, and you can tell that he's just been living in the shadows, waiting for moments to strike with families. And so, like, she kind of calls him out on it, and it's just, like, these two...
He likes that, though.
She does.
That's how direct he is.
Yeah. And so just watching them interact is so fascinating. And yeah, the soundtrack and like their little bits of their scenes at his house are just they shake the fucking foundation of this movie. I don't know. It's incredible.
So let's go back to the tiger scene. I'll say that
hell yeah.
I don't even know how much he's getting in touch with his other senses there, right? For me, at least my reading of it was even during that entire thing, and the guy who's like helping her or like guiding her experience with the tiger, really, really handsy and sort of odd with it. But he says something like along the lines of, "Oh, don't mind," I forget what his name was. Don't mind the tooth fairy killer. Like he's just watching, right? Or like don't feel weird because he's watching, something like that, right?
Yeah, and like, why would she?
Right. Like she doesn't feel assumedly she doesn't feel self-conscious about that. Like, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, like, occur to her to. It's the fact that they frame it like that. Like, oh, like, don't feel weird about him. He's just here to watch. And that's sort of, like, the role that he takes in all of his sort of relationships, it feels like. Or at least the ones where he feels passion, right? It's like, oh, don't mind me. I'm just watching. And then, I mean, later when they're at their house or when they're at his house, with the literal most interesting art I've, like, ever seen. His house is unhinged, just with, like, the hodgepodge of shit going on.
It's fucking incredible. It's such a good, like, it's awful. Also, like, I would never go in a house like that, but also, it's so cool.
How does he afford that shit? Like, he works at, like a photo store, print copy.
Yeah, place. Obviously he's just printing, full-scale replicas of Mars in his spare time.
Yeah, but, like, I mean, he's got a big-ass house. It's right on the lake, right? Like, he's got a nice
It was the
place.
80s.
There's some nice stuff in there, too. True.
He was probably an investment banker or something before this. That's how he made his money. Yeah. I agree with you. Like, he is so... That's why their relationship, when they meet, they kind of have this explosive, like, uniting, because he is only used to being voyeuristic. He can't... He's never explored outside of that. And, like, I don't think this is a sexy character or anything. Like, I don't want anyone to fucking think I'm a freak. But just, like, the way that they interact. If anyone doesn't think I'm a freak from last episode. Oh, I guess I bleeped all the freaky shit. Christopher texted me after he watched it. He was like, God, I'm glad Orson Welles isn't still alive. But no. So the two of them just, hit, like... his turmoil, again, just separate even from the killings, of just, like, meeting this woman who operates in such a different way than he does, and the sensuality that kind of arises out of them both. Like, they're having this, like, the music is so, like, in the tiger scene specifically, which I'm fine to talk about for the remainder of this podcast if you want, but, like... Great. The music is so, like, it's like this low, like, flute sound, or, like, this woodwind, and it's, like, kind of, like, not slimy, isn't a, like, it's very, like, I am just coming out of the mud of, like, the primordial ooze, like, like, kind of, like, the Amazon primal
river mud.
Out. And so it's like this scene of, like, birth between them, or, like, this scene of like, new passion. It's so hot. It's really, really cool. And just obviously, like, the act of being able to touch a tiger like that is so exciting too, not, like, erotically, but just, like, the whole scene is just so raw, on edge. Visceral. Yeah.
I will say, as he's sort of, like, later at their house, when she's, like, kissing him, and he's, like, watching...
Oh, yeah, the
next
movie.
Victims. It's a very masturbatory act, right?
Oh, yeah. He's basically... Yeah, he, like, looks... It's actually pretty funny when he, like... is looking at the, like, the boobs on screen, and then he, like, looks over to to Reba, and she's, like, got her shirt all the way buttoned up, and it's like you can't see it. It's kind of funny, but he's still, like, into it, you know. It's interesting.
But he also, like, doesn't make a move at all. Like she's, like, sitting there, she's like, oh,
no, he's
like,
just into watching.
This was, like, a really great time. Like, this was a really great... Oh, I guess, you know what? He is just into watch. That's true. Yeah.
He want to watch. That's all, you know.
You want to watch? Well, that's it, folks. That's the podcast.
I think the psychology between these two characters is just so interesting. I think Dollarhide is actually a more interesting villain than Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. Now, that's a character kind of hasn't aged well in certain ways, with, like, the transgender nature and stuff of it. For sure. But also, I just think both of these villains, both of these serial killers are transforming, but the way that Dollarhide is, like, transforming for his victims is way more interesting, I think, than Buffalo Bill. And of course, I mean, Silence of the Lambs is a better movie, but I would love to, like, if I could have my choice of, like, expanded secondary characters from the Hannibal universe, I think it would be these two. Because he's so, the way he interacts with Freddie Lowndes, the journalist, the tabloid guy, when he brings him back, that I think is actually probably, like, Silence of the Lambs is scarier on the whole, but that scene is probably the single scariest scene across those two movies, where he's sitting there like pantyhose pulled over his fucking head. He's got his hands outstretched and like he's got these enormous fucking mitts that he looks like Slender Man, like standing there. He's got the hugest teeth you've ever seen in your life, and then he's just like, "You owe me awe." Like it's so scary because you know this guy is all the way off his rocker. Whereas Buffalo Bill is like a little bit more understandable, whereas this guy's psychology is so much more like unknowable and weird.
It's alien.
An alien.
Mars. He's on fucking Mars.
Yeah, it fucking is. It's crazy. And the way that, I mean, you hear it, I think Stephen Lang, who plays Freddie Lowndes, like he does a really good job of like descending into terror in that scene of like, just like as he's reciting and kind of showing these pictures, like, do you see on the projector? And and he's just so frightened, like, and you can just hear it in his voice. It's a really powerful scene, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like complacent terror too. Like he's given the script to read.
Yeah,
and, like, he reads it out, and he's very like sort of choppy with it, but he's doing what he's told. Versus,
he sounds he sounds like a little kid who's talking through like the sniffles. He's like, I did not know what I was in for. Like, and it's good. It's scary. It reduces.
I will be a testament.
Yeah. It's terrifying though because you can tell he's fucking horrified.
Versus with like Buffalo Bill's victims, I mean they're horrified, but it's like always a palpable terror. It's always like a frantic terror. Like they're always like
screaming to
very
get out.
High energy.
Yeah.
Seeing someone who's sort of like as soon as he knows that he's in the presence of the killer, he's like, oh shit, like my time's up, right?
Yeah.
Like, well,
yeah.
What the fuck do I do that maybe he doesn't like end my shit?
It's really funny that he's blindfolded and he like, presumably doesn't 100% know what's going on, and then he takes the blindfold off and he opens his eyes and he sees again this guy with fucking pantyhose tied over the top half of his head, and he's like, oh yeah, this is a serial killer.
yeah And he's like, no, like, nah, not me, although honestly, what do you expect? Like, he's like a vulture as a journalist, as far as journalists go.
Oh yeah, totally.
Running that story, you gotta like have some form of understanding that like, oh hey, like this killer is going to hate me. And I can't believe like none of the cops like they didn't put a single beat cop on this guy. They had to have everyone down at like fucking like Columbus Avenue to harass this one like poor jogger at night. Like yeah. Like, all right, guys. We need the whole force out here, right? Like, one or two cop cars could have been patrolling the city.
Yeah.
Checking in on parking garages. I will say that Tooth Fairy seemed, like, really old. He was supposed to be 35 or 34. That's not a 34-year-old man, right? Like...
City miles.
Crazy? City miles. He lived out in the country.
He had Mars miles.
Fact. All right, nah, you're right. My bad.
I mean, yeah, he was Tom Noonan, the actor, was 35 when he shot this. So guys just looked older back then. I think they like shaved his hairline back 8 inches. Like,
okay, all right, fair. I think a lot of it was the hairline,
When they were looking for like a landing pad for the helicopter they were taking, they scouted in on his forehead. They were like, this is the biggest spot we got. Yeah, they rough him up a bit. He's also supposed to be 6'7", which I don't know about that. I mean, he looks fucking horrifyingly huge. Like, he's a big ass man. But yeah, they're stretching the truth a little bit.
They could put him in cowboy boots like Ron DeSantis. He's 6'7".
Shut up, God. I want these episodes to be timeless. You can't be making Ron DeSantis cowboy boots jokes.
Nah, true facts. My bad.
I want to talk a little bit about the style of this movie, specifically the two things that jump out to me about this are symmetry and color. This movie is very symmetrical in a lot of scenes, and it's funny watching them. Having just watched Grand Budapest not too long ago, it's funny seeing symmetry mean menace, whereas in that movie it's like comforting and dollhousey and like whimsy, and then This movie,
right.
it's like, isn't it fucking horrifying that everything is balanced symmetrically on the screen?
Yeah, even seeing him like burst through the Mars wallpaper when he's gunning down
Oh,
cops, like
he's so
it's right
scary.
down the center.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's
yeah,
like he's the center of attention at all times during that scene,
yeah,
which is like really cool.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, because
Terrifying, but really cool.
yeah, because earlier in the movie, the one cop gives him the special bullets, and he's like, "Yeah, this will take him down in one shot, guaranteed." And then it takes him like the full chamber, like or the full,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, like all of them.
he had one left, Lane. He chose not to
Yeah,
shoot him when he was on the ground.
yeah. He
That's
probably,
that's a testament to Will Graham's character right there.
yeah. Not all cops. Um, but between the
Wow.
between the symmetry, and then the color, like again, this movie got a lot of shit when it first came out because of the color being so over the top. But I think it's so good at establishing the psychology of the characters and where they're going, and like the barreling kind of spiraling downfall that Graham is having psychologically while he's hunting for Dollarhide. Like he starts out, everything is like blue and like romantic, and blue is a weird choice for romance, but it's cool. It's like collected. It's fragile. Blue is like sex and safety, and you see that like in the beginning, obviously, and then the scenes that he has with his wife, and even some of the scenes with Dollarhide and Reba. Some of their scenes are blue, like they have this like blue sheen over them because they're like it's like connection. It's the first time that he's feeling this human connection. But then green, this like
Yeah.
disgusting, sickly, fucking nasty green, is so treacherous and like dangerous and the unknown and like the sick psychology of that character. You see it when Graham is like running outside of Lecter's cell the first time that he meets him. When you first see the Tooth Fairy, like he's got the green, kind of like hue. Obviously, and like his house and his kitchen is very green. It's really, yeah, it's like creepy.
I'll say the one point where we see like a highlight or like a spotlight almost is, or at least the scenes that like stood out to me are whenever the Tooth Fairy's like decided on a victim or is like outlining his victims, they're always highlighted, right? Or like spotlighted, I guess. And part of that is like from the picture taking angle, but we see that happens within his psyche when he's looking at the one coworker dropping off Reba and like stopping her at the door,
Oh,
sort of like brushing something out of her hair or
yeah,
something.
the
It
like the like
spotlights them, and
yeah,
he sees it through like rose tinted eyes almost, right? Where like to him it looks like a tender moment, and since he's viewing it through that like voyeuristic sort of like complex, he's like, oh, like that's, and he also like it's a voyeuristic, but it's like a god complex, right? Where he's like, oh, like that's mine, like you
yeah,
can't do that, like you can't touch her, you can't like, I don't know, whatever, like you can't have a connection with her at all.
yeah.
And he like that's his like crime of passion, and that's why he gets caught, is because he's engaging, well, maybe not why he gets caught, but it definitely
It
leads to
leads
his
to
downfall, right?
Yeah, he would be
Yeah.
more prepared if he hadn't
Yeah.
actively, yeah, kidnapped her. Yeah, it's so funny. He's seeing this big romantic kiss or like embrace that isn't actually real, and then he uses his fucking like. Have you ever seen like a whale skeleton?
I can't say that I have.
Google whale hands right now, or like Google like whale bone hands. I don't know, or fins. What are those called? You know how like they have hands, like fins are hands, and they're like these long, spindly, like weirdly shaped and weirdly curved, but they're bones, just like you would see in your hand. I sound like I'm on Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah.
I'm on Joe Rogan right now.
I
I'm
know
like,
what you're getting at now.
hits blunt.
Yep.
Like, have you ever seen a whale's hands? But like that, when he's tearing the dashboard up, and he like
Those fins, man, under that blubber and stuff. It's hands.
I can't-
I'm
I can't
telling
do-
you, the shit goes deeper.
I can't do Joe Rogan. I can only do Alex Jones. I can't do the Joe.
That's
Rogan.
not even Joe, bro. That's just like your
That's-
fucking high school buddy who's high as fuck.
Your Joe Rogan guest appearance. We should have him on.
He's like, that's crazy, man. You ever see apes? Chimpanzee will tear your face right off.
Hey.
Jamie, pull up that video. You guys ever see that moose getting hit by a car? Jamie,
all right,
pull up that
all right,
video.
all right. But no, he extends his hands and he like puts them over the dashboard and like rips his car apart. And you just see him from, like, you can see his hand and then you see him from the window as he's like you're watching him watch them. And his face is like this sickly, nasty green color. And I'm really hung up on the green because outside of my apartment, the like nearby university just put up a new neon sign and it's the exact fucking color green.
Oh god!
And it's like this
You're living
huge...
in a Simpsons episode.
I am, and it's. I like woke up one morning and I was like, oh, I'm in The Great Gatsby with that big fucking like poster or like billboard of the optometrist.
You're in the Seinfeld episode where Kramer is living across from the chicken spot, and it just makes his whole house red. Yeah, and you're like,
that's what it feels like. I'm looking at my window.
What's that red light there? I don't even notice it anymore.
I'm looking out the window right now, and it's like. It's an ugly ass logo for the local university, and it's just like this huge. It's the only like bright light other than the street lights, and so it's just like illuminating in the middle of the dark, and it's so gross. And it really reminds me of this movie because him tearing up this dashboard, and then when he breaks into her house, it's all green in there too. It's like he's like this dark, toxic cloud of like self-doubt and possessiveness. It's really gross, and it's sad too. You really like when he is in the house with her. It's so scary. You're so afraid for her. It is truly like a rival to when Jodie Foster is down in the basement in Silence of the Lambs. It's just as scary, if not scarier, because you know how vulnerable she is and how unhinged this guy is. So.
And especially the emotion, like, he has, like, very little emotion on his face. Like, he's always sort of, like, stony with her. In these sort of, like, intimate times where it's like, okay, like, you'd expect something, anything, right? And he gives nothing. He's literally a brick wall.
It's horrifying.
Yeah. And she's like, what in the first scene that we see them together, where she's like, can I touch your face? I want to know whether you're smiling.
Ooh, and he's like, trust me, I'm smiling. Ooh, it's so scary.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it's like to talk to people on the internet. You're like...
Facts. That's what this podcast is like, because we can't see each other's faces.
Yeah, trust me, I'm laughing.
Yeah.
I feel like we haven't talked about Graham enough, but...
We can touch on him a bit, I guess.
I think he sells the talking to himself pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, all of my comments on him can kind of be summed up with the fact that he reminds me a lot of the character he plays in CSI, Gil Grisham. And I mean, to like the nth degree, right? Where he's really in these guys' heads. He's really doing that sort of like criminal psychology breakdown. And I love that aspect. Like, it's almost like MacGyver for like inside the mind of a killer, and that's peak Kino to me, right? It doesn't get better than that.
How do you feel about true crime? At risk of making this a half-hour longer podcast than normal.
No. You mean like true crime podcasts or like
podcasts
videos
or like
down...
or like Forensic Files or things like that, or like podcasts.
A lot of times that stuff does make me kind of uncomfortable, just because it's like knowing that it was like a real person, sort of the clinical way that they talk about it, and on the flip side, the way that some people like within that sphere get really sort of like a little too into it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. It's got weird, bad vibes a lot of times. So I never got really too into it. There were like some that I would watch, and like I do enjoy, maybe not enjoy, but I find really interesting some interviews with like convicted felons or like convicted murderers, especially with like a skilled interrogator, because some of the guys in there, they're just like, like, why'd you do it, you know? And some guys are really sort of like, they slowly poke and prod, like methodically, a lot like Hannibal Lecter does, right? But to different ends. That's interesting to me, to hear them sort of like break down their thought processes. I mean, even just like the why behind it all, because a lot of times it turns out it's just like a spur of the moment thing. It's almost like they're like, well, like I just felt like it, like well, why do I really need an excuse? Definitely different from like a theatrical presentation of a lot of these ideas, because I mean, like within procedurals or within like these sorts of movies, like any sort of crime-based movie, they have very like thematic heavy reasoning behind it, right? Like the transformation, like the becoming something greater than. And I'm not saying that these guys don't have that, but a lot of times during interviews after they've been caught, they're sort of like quote unquote defeated, and you're looking into the mind of like a killer who's been like subjugated, tamed almost, like it's a caged tiger, and it's definitely it's different from like seeing them like out in the wild, I guess. And so I definitely like, not to use like the tiger analogy even further, but I like
Don't ruin this
I
for
like
me.
seeing them. I'm sorry. I like seeing them out in the wild, and I like to see them like hunted. I like to see them hunting and being hunted, right? I like seeing the manhunter go after them, right? Like that's interesting to me. So
I guess it's just the artificiality of it and like the propaganda aspect of that kind of thing. I mean, obviously we've both talked about it's problematic, like the uncomfortableness of it being real people and stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that true crime has been really bad for women because I understand what you're saying. Like everybody loves a mystery and like understanding the psychology of why things work is just another interesting way of understanding and unraveling a mystery. But yeah, I feel like it's led to too much pathologizing and fear
for sure.
in general. Yeah, and it's just it's also gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like there to be like one step of removal. I kind of like not need it to be, but like it's just sad hearing about like the things that happen to like a real person.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, like like these at least, like I can enjoy it because like no one was harmed in the making of this film, right? Like it doesn't say that explicitly, but that's the
Right.
implicit trust when you're going into it. Like this
Yeah.
isn't a real story. These people are all made up. Like yes, there are bad people in the world who do bad things, but like you are not seeing the story of one of them. This is just
In general.
like
a fictional.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a generalization of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it.
Characters.
It's like I kind of said at the beginning, it's so fun and like cathartic to watch vectors for good and evil duke it out and see good come out on top in this way. So you're never going to get rid of that, but just the taking away that layer of removal in having it be fictional, even though there is still artifice in actual true crime where it's based on real people and stuff. There's still artifice in that. There's still narrative. You're still telling a story with people who are actual people and not characters. That just, I think too many people have latched onto that. And like we are in these unprecedented times of mass psychosis and like terrible mental health. So I can't necessarily blame people for it, but it's so, I just see what it does to women and it's so awful.
Yeah, I think a lot of programming lends itself towards fear because, like, especially now when we are in such like I mean, I'll use the term high trust society. I don't think that America is particularly high trust compared to other developed nations.
No.
And I think that sort of like feeds into the fear, like propaganda, fear narrative. It's very easy to sell fear to people who want it, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's why you see so many people, so many right-wing politicians capitalizing on perceived criminal, rise of crimes and things like that, like the Law and Order, blah, blah. Like, and all of that's bullshit. Like, we're living in a safer time, violent crime-wise, than we ever have. But, of course, it's very easy to be like, and they're coming to rape your women and, like, whatever, or they're coming to, be a serial killer in your house.
They do that for everything now. Even to the violence of like they're coming to take your job. It's economic violence, right? And it's or like even down to like social violence, right? Where they're like
they're indoctrinating your kids. Yeah.
They're indoctrinating. Yeah. Yep. Like literally exactly that, right? Like like they want to be like in the bathroom with your kid, and it's like, all right, like
Yeah.
pause, dude. Like,
Well, this is what upsets me so much about. All right, now we're gonna. No. This is what makes me mad about true crime and women. And the reason I bring this up is because I think there's been a lot of very interesting movies this year that have talked about true crime, and specifically have indicted true crime. Just no, I think that we're on a cultural reckoning or a path to it, which is great. But yeah, just the way that I've seen on social media, which I try not to use much anymore, but the number of times I see posts from girls like hyping up ways to protect yourself from violence that are just either
right.
at best ineffective and unnecessary, and at worst like going to make you hurt yourself or be more crazy and paranoid.
Right.
That
Yeah.
I mean, that too is it's fucked up, because like that's another, like it's not the direct aim of whatever our shitty patriarchal society to like breed
Induce
unfounded fear.
psychosis within.
Like like it's breeding founded fear, but then women are also hyping themselves up because of this kind of true crime stuff into having unfounded fears as well. And that's not to say that like violent crime, random violent crime or trafficking or whatever doesn't happen to women, but it's so that, you know, the stats are there. If you're going to die at the hands of somebody else, it's probably going to be your partner or somebody in your family.
Right.
And so instead I see these things that are like, make sure you look in the backseat of your car, but make sure you approach from the driver's side first. It's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, make sure that when you're at a gas station that you, are checking every car every time to make sure that you're not seeing the same car in case you're being stalked. Like, I see this advice, and then, you know, people in the comments are like, so true, bestie. Like, and it's like, God, we're in the worst timeline. So I can understand at least people who want to watch things where, or like, yeah, listen to podcasts and things where there's a solved something, because there is catharsis in that, just like watching a movie like this. But the ones that are like unsolved, or, you know, kind of really focusing in more on the lurid details than the cathartic nature of it, it's crazy. And so I really hope that as we maybe, I mean, the next year is going to be really tough politically, obviously, but I'm hoping that sometime soon we can kind of come out of this mass fear induced like psychosis that we're all in, especially culturally.
Especially like posts about trafficking. So anytime I see a post about trafficking, it's the most just inane, like, oh, I saw a like candy bar wrapper in the handle of my door of my car, and it's like, all right, well, like, that doesn't mean anything. Somebody was walking by your car and they instead of just dropping it on the ground, they put it into your car handle. Like, all right, like, sorry, okay, don't know what to tell you.
You're not being trafficked.
I was marked, like I was called out. Yeah, and it's like, that doesn't happen, right? Like in America, that does not happen. I hate to say it, it just doesn't. Like, no. Yeah, if you're a foreigner on vacation, like, yeah, that shit does happen elsewhere. But like, that is not a problem in America. We have many problems. Let's not invent more, right? Like,
everyone has seen Taken, like, and thinks that that's what happens.
Right.
Like, everyone wants to be in fucking Liam Neeson's, you know, like, movie. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, like, the women who are being trafficked, the type of trafficking that does happen in this country, is not happening to rich undergrads or
in the middle of like Scranton, right? Like, that's just, I'm sorry, like, it's not like a prime grounds for that, I guess. It's not a prime hunting ground.
Yeah, just that if you're going to get trafficked in this country, you're going to be probably underaged and probably a very poor, either a sex worker, like you're not like
or like an undocumented person.
Through
it's
your
going
job.
To be a crime that right. It's going to be something that it's like easy for them to get away with, and they traffickers, specifically sex traffickers, know that. Like absolutely, they have a demographic that they're like preying upon. Well, it's there, but the people posting about it are not.
The most human trafficking in this country is migrant workers. Like, it's not like sex trafficking. It's like undocumented. Like, you hit the nail on the head. But that's not lurid and sexy in the way, and you can't like make a podcast out of that in the same way. So it's fucked up. Anyway, okay, rant over. This movie is cathartic.
Really good movie, Manhunter. Excellent catharsis.
The slow build of the score. I mean, the score of this movie is incredible. It alternates between like sensual and creepy, very, very well. The slow build when Will Graham is sitting and talking to Dennis Farina, to his to the boss, the detective, and realizes he's kind of talking himself into understanding that Dollarhide has seen those home videos. That score, like crescendoing when the detective's on the phone, like peel back the label, like it's so, like you're like pumping your fist in the air. You're like, yes, you got him. You're gonna get him. It's really effective.
Yeah, I mean, even the way that he gets into character, and not like gets into character as a detective, but like the way that the character himself gets into the mind of a killer.
Yeah,
and he
it's scary.
he talks it out, and then he goes, "You son of a bitch! That's what you did, didn't you?" Like, so cool. That shit's great.
Yeah, the scene at the end, like we've mentioned, when he like jumps through the glass, which like maybe the most stupid move I've ever seen a protagonist in a movie do. Like, just let's run face first into the glass and just immediately get caught out of the air. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's the one part.
Yeah, though.
Yeah.
So that also lends itself to the importance that the Tooth Fairy places upon sight, right? Because he immediately shoots out the lights instead of going for the detective that just bursts through the window.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Him, the sight is the most important part. He's like, if these people can't see me, it will all be okay. I will still be the one in control.
Yeah, totally.
Just really enjoyed that. It like really drives home like what this guy values more than anything.
Yeah. The sounds of his shotgun, like going off through the house, is so scary.
Yeah.
Like it's so like, it's just so loud and like reverberating in your brain as he's shooting it, and it's and then of course everybody else shooting at him, and him just like clearing out these cops. Like, it's really intense.
Well, those were just rank and file. Those were normal cops.
Yeah,
those
that's
were
true.
Just coppers coming in at first, and then you get to watch him. And then like he like goes back into the kitchen to like finish off the investigator. He's like, "All right, Will Graham, I've had enough of your shit." He doesn't even know it's Graham, right? Like at that point, he's like,
"No,
this is just some crazy fucking cop." And he's going back in. Oh man! And then he gets dropped. Sick, so sick.
Yeah.
I'm a film bro. This movie's made me a film bro.
It's a cool scene, and I love Inagata Devita, the song that's playing in the background, but I can't listen to it because I think of this movie. It's a really cool song, and it's like a great one to listen to when you're like
when you're dropping cops.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, like the way it's deployed here is so scary because again, it's like, all right, come into the ooze with me, bro. Like, let me come be like primal and horrified. Yeah, it's so scary and in the dark. Yeah, it's nasty.
Like, there's a ton of rising action. That's like the perfect like conflict. I love movies that are like just like all rising action to like one big conflict, and then like the falling action is just like, yep, and everyone went home, and you know what, like, yeah, have the main character say that pretty much everyone was okay.
You should watch old movies because you would love like you watch some movies from like the 40s and 30s, and it's like the climax will happen and then the credits will roll immediately. Like there's just let's go. Yeah. It's good stuff. Also, did you buy a book on like filmmaking or storytelling techniques right before we did this podcast? Because I feel like you're really addicted to like
no. You're
like, I love the 3-act structure of this movie. This movie's really about man versus God.
No. I will say, and this ties into last week. So last week you made an offhand comment about
I'm afraid.
Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh
but like really it was like a Neon Genesis Evangelion meme. So it's funny you did that because I'd been rewatching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and
FMAP, assigned male at birth.
FMAP.
Yeah.
Yes. Assigned. Yeah. So one of my like favorite things about that show is the fact that it's like all rising action, like up until like. So it's 64 episodes, right? Like 20 hours long, and
Jesus.
18 hours. Like there's a lot of like smaller like rising action conflicts or like conflicts, climaxes, depending upon like what's actually occurring, right? And then like sort of like small falling actions, and it's a constant upward slope though. And I feel, not to, I'm really derailing this, but like I'll be short. The the thing that I don't like about a lot of anime is how it like spirals out of control into like essentially gods fighting each other, right? Because like the way that the power scaling works, it just sort of goes into infinity. And they do a good job of sort of keeping that, maybe not in check, but like giving you time to like have like plausible deniability, or like where you're like, oh, okay, like I guess that's not too big of a leap, seeing like this get introduced, and it's like, okay, like that's not too big of a leap, and you do that so many times, so incrementally, up until the like 63rd episode, where you're like, wait, holy fuck, what the fuck is going on? And like the climax there is just fucking perfect, and the last episode is just like, it's just resolutions. It's just like everything that like you want out of the series. It's just like, yep, this has all been resolved, and it's perfect for that. And that's like usually the way that I try to sell it to people, is that I'm like, yeah, like you get in and it's just like all rising action. Like it's a slow burn where you're just like, there's a ton of action going on, and it's a shonen, so it's like it's meant to be like an action show for like teens. I mean, and like I love that shit. But the just the way that it's paced, so that like once you get to that climax, you get like 4 or so episodes, like 4 to 6 episodes of just like shit is happening, shit's going down, boom, boom, boom. That's the end of the story. Hope you had a good time. It's like, all right, like shit, sick, let's go, man. Which I don't know. I really appreciate from any media where I can get to feel that sort of like that slow burn up to like one big climax, and then yep, bon voyage. Hope you enjoyed. By the way, everyone's good. They're chilling. Hope you had fun. Like, it's cool. I don't know.
Yeah, the end where, okay, there's like 3 kind of back to back little bits right after the Tooth Fairy's dead. He like goes to Reba, and she's like, who are you? And he's like, okay, I'm Will Graham. Like, it's cool.
Graham.
I'm not.
Will
I am
Graham.
not. Yeah. I'm definitely not consumed with the psychology of these murderers that I've been studying for the last year.
Right.
Which he's totally broken. That man will never come back. But
oh yeah, no, horrifyingly broken inside. But like he still has that empathy, right? Like he's still human there, you know.
Yeah. And then this. Did you watch this on Internet Archive?
Yeah.
There's a scene that isn't in that, because I noticed it when I also watched it at Internet Archive. There's a scene where he visits the other family that was supposed to, like, the next family, and he just kind of like,
oh shit.
Yeah,
because I was gonna say I only saw 2 ending bits, right,
yeah,
where he sort of consoles Reba, and then it's like him on the beach with his wife and kid, and he's like, yeah, you know, pretty much everyone made it out alive. I guess that's the best we could hope for. And it's just like them walking in the sand while the ocean rolls up, and it's like, yeah, hell yeah, bro. You enjoy your life from now on. You know, you've had it tough. Just take it easy.
let me make sure I'm not crazy.
You're really retired now.
Yeah, he visits
Imagine
their
someone
next.
like sidling up to your home and being like, "Hey, by the way, you were next on the Tooth Fairy's list. Like, you were this close to death, and I saved you. You were
He doesn't
this
say
fucking
all
close."
that. He just says, he kind of goes up to their house, and he introduces himself, and he's like, I just want to make sure everything's all right. I just wanted to stop by and see you. So he just like,
okay.
he's kind of like wrapping things up, and then that's a good scene, but it's not for whatever reason in this edit that we watched. And then of course the end where he's like, most of the turtles made it. It's like, oh, he's still thinking about the fact that some of them died. Like, of course he's gonna live with that forever. But most of them made it, so he triumphed. It's just, it's very wrenching and like fitting.
Well, in the middle of the story, he was like, you know, you showed me those first 2 families, and I would think of the 4th, the 5th, the 6th.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like they made it, and like I also took that to mean that a lot of the cops made it too.
Yeah.
That like they were wearing like bulletproof vests or whatever.
Hopefully, yeah.
Kevlar second chance.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this movie?
Nope, I loved it. I thought it was great. I think it sort of opened my eyes to the fact that, like, yeah, I do like sort of psychological thrillers, sort of crime drama-esque, which I knew because, like, I mean, I did sort of grow up on them, but I didn't, like, I've never seen movies about them, really. I've just watched TV shows, which are very different. It's much cooler in this format. What about you?
I love this fucking movie. I feel like I almost have nothing interesting to say because I have nothing but good things to say about this movie.
Hell
just
yeah.
looking over my notes. Yeah.
Just like all caps, this movie fucking rocks.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't know.
Basically, yeah. The tiger scene's hot. I won't be silenced. I also like that they don't. One other thing here, even though it is very procedural, I do like that they don't explicitly detail in this movie, like, and so because he says, like, he was probably a bit abused as a kid, but they're not like, because one time he saw his mom, like, looking in the mirror when his dad strangled her or something, like, and now he has to see things.
Right.
Like, it doesn't get that, like, serious or direct.
Right.
Which
Which
I
is what they
enjoy.
would do in, like, a true crime.
Yeah.
Like, to try to, like...
Yeah, connect the dots. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
connect
instead,
the dots, make it sort of more fantastical.
Yeah. Yeah. So they are able to evoke this character's psychology using all of the indirect methods instead of explicitly explaining it all, which is great.
Yeah,
So,
they're not too heavy-handed.
yeah. I like this movie a lot. I wouldn't say this is a comfort movie for me, but yeah, I there are definitely scenes from this. I watch the forensic scene from time to time. This is definitely just on Lane's YouTube list of movie scenes to watch sometimes when I'm bored.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Or I have the urge.
I'll say, since this movie isn't too explicitly gory, it is in a few scenes, but it's not like...
Yeah.
You're
It's
not
reserved.
watching people get murdered. Yeah, which I enjoy. I don't like this sort of, like, maybe not for show, but, like, really bloody, over the top, like,
Yeah. The boys.
you know.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I'm fine with having that be, like, very implicit, and, like, occasionally the aftermath is shown, right?
Yeah.
So when you do see someone, like, commit violence on screen, it's much
jarring.
more impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, instead of making the murder and attempted murder at the end, like, just one among many pieces of violence, like, those are, like, the violence of the film. And, like,
Yeah.
even when you see, like, the cops set up their sting, like, it's jarring how much energy and how much emotion is in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, they play around with that really well.
Good ass movie.
So
Yeah. It's a Rick pick.
yeah, I was going to say, I do have a Rick pick set up.
Hell yeah. Let's go. Because we got to wrap it. Remember when I was like, it's going to be a tight 10? And now we're going on
I
an
know,
hour 40.
yeah, it's a tight 10.
Christopher's sending me a Dear John letter. Like, please go home. The kids miss you.
When will Lane return from war?
Yeah. What's Rick's pick?
So, Rick's pick is a 1991 sci-fi action anime film.
Okay.
It's called Rojin Z. So
Okay.
I have not seen this movie.
Oh.
I just, like, I saw it on, like an Instagram reel or, like, a TikTok or something like that.
Oh,
where-
embarrassing. Okay.
a bit embarrassing, but it was described as it's set in a dystopian future, where it's very capitalistic, and they're not, like, sort of preying upon the elderly, but essentially the only people that, like, have resources or, like, money still are the elderly people, right? Because, like, they've hoarded the wealth, so everyone else in society is sort of, like, in supporting roles where they're trying to, like, do end-of-life care and that sort of stuff, and robotics and technology take a huge turn towards that, where they start creating these machines which are basically they try to fulfill every whim
Yeah,
of
I
the
see.
elderly people that are placed within them. And it seems interesting at the very least. It looks like there's some cool action in it. The animation style from the clips that I saw
Looks
were,
a hell of a lot like Akira.
Yeah, that's just sort of due to the animation techniques at the time, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
I
can
mean,
sort
even
of
just
dive into
like,
that more next week.
okay,
But
yeah, I was gonna say just the like tech and flesh I'm just seeing from this, like these still
yeah, so
images. This
that
intense.
was very popular. Like
Really?
that was a very popular sort of yeah. Like Akira, I don't think was necessarily
Unique.
groundbreaking. They had a few
Yeah.
sort of groundbreaking techniques in the animation that they use.
All right. Save it
But
for
like,
save it for next week. We gotta save for next week.
yeah. I'll say the theming was like very sort of on point for the time, and the reason that it's like lasted the test of time is because it's the epitome, I guess, of that era, right? I think this will be a good movie for like our first sort of animated film to watch.
Sure.
And I was looking for a Rick's pick. I wasn't like necessarily looking for one, but I was like thinking about one, and this one just sort of I mean, it stood
Okay.
out to me. It looked really cool. So.
Yeah, I'm into it. Okay, Satoshi Kon is actually like the art director on this movie too. So there's a few different. I'm not. This is not totally inaccessible to me, I guess. Yeah, I'm excited. It'll. As we talked about, I don't know a lot of anime beyond kind of the very, very most famous stuff. So this will be interesting, and it's free on YouTube. It's only 80 minutes. These are all things I like.
Yeah.
So cool.
I will say, looking it up, the manga artist who like wrote this and who was a screenwriter for the film is the same one for Akira.
Oh
So,
shit. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
probably some similar themes.
Yeah,
Obviously.
they were within 3 years of each other. They
Damn,
came out
okay.
like very close in time. And this one, I guess you could almost see this as a follow-up to Akira because this one came out
Yeah.
afterwards.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. All right. I'm excited.
But yeah,
This will
I
be
think
fun.
it'll be a good watch.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, yeah. Next week, it seems like we want to watch Roshan X.
Oh, it's Roshan Z. You want to give that another try?
Roshan Z. Fuck. All right. Next week, we want to watch Roshan Z. And you can cut this, but I did have problems trying to find this movie because I was looking up Roshan X and like Rorin X, and I was like just like Rorin, like I was trying just like different like small changes, and I finally landed on it. Which is
That's
why I
really
had
funny. Woof.
It's so silly. I can't believe I couldn't get to it. Yeah, big oof.
Well, sweet. I'm sure I'll take
Yeah.
I'll take one of the various songs that you use throughout this episode, unless you have another one off the dome.
Nope. I think I'm gonna end my recording here.
Okay.
I don't have a song off the dome. Sorry.
It's too bad. All right. Bye.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
What you want, what you want, what you gonna